Taming the Demon by Ami Levskiro. Chapter 11. To Doboroku the Trainer. If there was one thing about Kobayakawa Sena's personality that Hiruma would never ever get tired of, it was his complete obedience. It wasn't 2 seconds after the kid admitted to being thankful that he didn't have to tackle the aliens' quarterback Homer that the blonde taught him the blitz. And so the running back turned right back around and started practicing tackling large man-shaped targets. Although it made him feel strangely ill at ease when the boy agreed to sleep over at Carita's place so they could come to practice earlier in the morning. It was ridiculous for a myriad of reasons. First, it's Carita! The guy was raised by monks and lived in a Buddhist temple. He didn't have a deceptive bone in his body and couldn't even begin to imagine turning on Hiruma in any way. Secondly, the mini fat ass had been staying there for weeks and nothing bad has happened to him. Finally, the monkey is going too, and he and the kid have always had each other's backs. Except when it comes to Hiruma, Sena will perpetually, unfailingly side with Hiruma. Nevertheless, the blonde knew he would stay uncomfortable until he saw the brunette next. Which would turn out to be the next morning when the kid called him hysterical, hungover, and hanging from a tree in the lion's den at the local zoo! Hiruma's intuition was right. Of course it wasn't. So the quarterback went to the kid's rescue, got him down from the tree and out of the pit, watched quietly as he puked in a trash can, and brought him some painkillers and a bottle of water. He made sure to yell at the kid and constantly reiterate that this would not excuse him for practice, just to make sure no one who may have been around thought he was going soft. Note to self, the kid stared for 0.8 seconds longer than normal at a pair of extra lightweight cleats in an athletic wear department window display. Musashi stopped by to mention that he had a bet going with the kids. Beat the American team and he'll come back. The blonde laughed, saying that even if the Americans won, the fucking old man would come back on his own anyway. Kid got the cleats at the exact length of time before the game to probably break them in, and still have them in peak condition to compete in. Hiruma had calculated the brat's practice time in exact microseconds. The shorty's face had lit up like a tree at Christmas when he opened the box, and the blonde had that light feeling again. After that, Hiruma advertised almost like never before. Come game day, the stands were bursting with Japanese spectators. This time, the crowd was on the Devil Bat side. Less likely Demon would lose it. The devilish quarterback quite enjoyed making use of his extensive list of English synonyms for penis, and yes, he was completely sure that his was bigger than Apollo's nationality, but damned. Sena took first blitz. It failed. Even when Komusubi or Jumonji got Homer, it failed. It continued to fail until the Aisho part of Sena started shining through. He had figured out a way to attack Homer at his weak point, and he asked if he could try. Hiruma grinned and dared him to. And so the Japanese representatives were put on the board, but more importantly, the Japanese quarterback was reminded that Sena's greatest asset wasn't his legs. It was Demon. Everybody and their mother recognized the brat's change of pace talent, but it wasn't really Sena doing it. Sena got scared, slowed down, stopped moving. Demon got pissed, stepped up, took off. Demon understood that he couldn't play by his own rules here. Demon also understood that it would hurt the enemy a lot worse if they got beaten at their own game. Demon wanted Panther play. Even throwing him behind the sweep maneuver didn't shift his focus from the lithe American. If anything, his resolve hardened with each touchdown scored. Hiruma watched the kid's face flicker between his default and rage personalities as every eye turned to the American team kneeling before their coach. Panther started putting a uniform on. During the last minute, Japan was down by 7 points and Panther was racing up the field with the ball. Hiruma could tell from the chills running up and down his spine that Demon, playing safety now, had had just about enough of being beaten by this guy. The only problem was grabbing the ball back from him. After that, it would be stealing candy from a sleeping infant with a blind deaf mother easy to score another touchdown. Luckily enough, the kid noticed that Panther was incredibly sloppy with holding the ball. Poor Panther didn't even see it coming when Demon ripped the ball out of his hands and turned around, bolting back down the field. The kid got them to only 1 point behind, but that was it for him. The Devil Bat captain rounded up the rest of his team for the 2-point conversion, but ultimately the team fell when the kid did. The Japanese quarterback was irritated that they lost, but didn't dwell on it for too long. The important thing now was to start getting things together for the Devil Bat's trip to America. America, the land of legalized firearms. The blonde knew he and the gun shopkeeper would get along famously, especially since the man had no qualms with the subject of smuggling, even if he was a tad nervous about putting a loaded gun in Sena's hands. It was alright though, his skinny little arms couldn't handle the recoil for him to aim properly. There was also much fun involved, shooting the target through the gaps of arms of a couple idiot Americans. He was going to keep that gun just to cackle over. The best part was, after watching Seibu's kid shoot, Hiruma was now 100% certain of the other quarterback's identity. Useless brats couldn't even do short passes properly. Whatever. 100,000 yen in club funds was practically in their grasp, and fuck if the blonde was going to let it slip through their fingers. So he disposed of Sena's little guardian angel and took her place. Tattoo? What the heck kind of name was that? Seriously, Doboroku, you may be drunk most of the time, but even you aren't that bad. Didn't even know it hit them. Speaking of the alcoholic coach, he finally woke up to see 2/3 of the Mao trio before him. After introducing him to the team as a lazy bum and complete pervert, he offered to give the Seibu coach, quarterback, receiver, and cow a ride out to their ranch in his big rig. Seibu agreed and offered in return a place to stay for the homeless Damon. The barbecue at Ben Ranch was an excellent feast, though it did include some less than wonderful activities, such as Doboroku taking a swing at the blonde, forcing said teen to block it with a pumpkin, which was hilarious, over Musashi, and the firstborn brother kept staring at the kid. But the most interesting part of the night was what came after. Hiruma had noticed the kid getting bullied by a cow. Cow! Was aware that the kid had been chased into the large rodeo pen near the campfire. But it wasn't until much later that he realized that there hadn't been a peep from either of them after that. Most of the team had gone to bed already, and anyone left out was either falling asleep in their seats, Nozaki waiting for Sena, or too drunk to understand what was going on around them. Doboroku and the Seibu coach. This was incredibly convenient because when Sena came out of the shadows again, it wasn't actually Sena anymore. Demon's eyes focused on the blonde, said Blonde being the only conceivable threat in the vicinity, and gestured him forward as he slunk around the corner of the barn. It was extremely unusual behavior for an extremely unpredictable kid. So Hiruma gripped his new M16 a little tighter and followed the smaller boy. Upon rounding the corner, the taller teenager stopped, seeing those two big eyes shining at him like an animal's. He asked the kid what he needed.
You are a great aggravation to us, yet you are indispensable to our survival.
Hiruma completely froze upon hearing the voice that was Sena's, but not. And the realization that this was the first time Demon had ever spoken in his presence, maybe at all.
We have flourished under your care, but are held back by your chains. We are all Sena, but we are bound to the wishes of the original. He will not speak out against you. We are entirely yours to control. I alone cannot accept this.
The blonde could feel himself break out into a cold sweat, but was still determined not to show any weakness.
If we must be yours, then you must be ours to the same degree.
For a split second, Hiruma lost his focus as he wondered at the implications of that statement. But a split second was too long, and the quarterback found himself lying in the grass, hands bound in tight little grips on either side of his face, his gun lost in the dark, and the kid's mouth roughly slanted over his own.